Where are we in 2026 recruiting for the Texas Longhorns, Cody? I'm sitting in a gym this weekend for my daughter's basketball game for her travel basketball team. And I'm sitting there next to one of the dads, one of my buddies, and he just asks me, why is Texas missing out on all these recruits? And I go to church the next day on Sunday, and my buddy at church, where they're serving before getting church set up. And as we're putting up the tents and stuff outside to give people shade when they're getting their donut holes and their coffees and all the rest, right?
So
And
good too.
he's yeah, that church coffee always hits different, right? Um, he asked me the same question. He goes, "What is going on with Texas recruiting?" And I told him, I said, "Well, what's going on is that they landed a guy in Richie Wesley that nobody expected them to land." And there were a couple of misses over this last weekend that people were generally expecting Texas to miss on. We talked about it just on Friday, right? But the calendar's about to turn to July. Do things fare differently? Because I believe this week alone, heading into the fourth, we have what, 7 of these decisions coming?
Yeah, so over the course of the next week, so just Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're gonna have 6. So we got Kendall Gerville, the defensive tackle from Florida, Trenton Henderson, the edge rusher, defensive end, strong side D end, Kosi Okpala, the linebacker. He'll be on July 3rd. And then on Friday, the 4th of July, we got Bryce Perry Wright, strong side D end from Buford, Georgia, Caden Finley, of course, and then John Turntine, who, I mean, that's probably the one that's going to come on Friday afternoon/night. Or I think he released, I think it's going to be like 12:15, like high noon on Friday the 4th. But I don't know if that's the best time or if that's the worst time, but that's what he chose.
I'll be on vacation that day, but certainly that's something that I'll be glued to, because I think with offensive line recruiting, we had an update from Jason just last night on Felix Ojo. Sark had a conversation yesterday with Ojo per Sukamel over on orangebloods.com. And in so doing, just reiterated that he's a major target for them. He doesn't care about the bad showing at the Rivals 5-star, clearly. If that decision does come in the next couple of weeks, we could have Turntine and Ojo on board for the offensive line class, which would really go a long way for this thing. I'm at the point to where, if they don't get those two guys, I think you could feel a little bit okay, feeling a little bit freaked out for now. I'm not freaked out right now.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, there's no reason to be freaked out when you've seen what they've done the last couple
People are
of years.
freaked out down here, man.
But
I get asked at basketball
why?
games. I get asked at church. I get because people they
They don't
maybe it's
understand
because
it.
yeah, I think that they follow recruiting and on not at the same granular level that we do. And when you follow at a granular level that we do, we get pumped up about these decisions, and they're coming up whenever we know very well that this is maybe a 10% chance for Texas, or we've gotten serious vibes for another school, but you never know until they put the hat on. And so we talk about them. We talk about the decisions coming up. It gets in the minds of fans that there's a decision coming up for a recruit, and they see that recruit put on a hat for Alabama, and they say, or Georgia, and they say, well, what's going on with recruiting? I like them. I like to see them put on the Texas hats, So I think that that's the way that people see it right now. But as we said, we're flipping over to a new month tomorrow, right? It's because it's become it's a big month at Orange Bloods with everything that's going to be happening with the site starting tomorrow, right? But it marks sort of this new wave of decisions coming up. So let's talk about just in the near term, who is it that we're looking at?
Well, first off, I just want to say this, in that if you look at the last couple of years, specifically 2025, that finishes the number 1 overall class in the country, do you know how many people were signed? How many prospects were signed as of July 1st?
Last year?
Not signed, committed. Committed as of July 1st.
It feels like Jonah Williams and all that. There was kind of a bunch of stuff that happened in maybe early August.
So there was 10. The 11th commitment came on July 1st. That was Smith Arogbo. The 11th. And now this 2026 class right now has 15.
Yeah. And some really good ones.
You go back to 2014, the number on July 1st, 8. Parker Livingstone was the 9th.
Huh.
So, as far as comparing it to the last 2 years that have both finished number 3 and number 1 in America, Texas is like honestly ahead, ahead of the race as far as how it's been. So, people worrying should just, just relax. Just remember how the last 2 years have went. And I think when you look at these next 2 weeks, and like you said, I think 2 weeks ago was a lot of Texas A&M stuff. This last week we've heard a lot of Georgia, Bama. I know Georgia got Chase Calicut last week. Georgia got James Johnson. Xavier Griffin goes to Bama this weekend. Like everyone's like, they can freak out over that and they can see that. And I went on a little 2-day trip with some family from Georgia, and they're like, Georgia wearing their Georgia hat and all this crap. I'm like, listen, Texas ain't even warmed up the engine yet. Like the oil's just starting to bubble. And Kendall Gervil.
Are your in-laws Georgia fans?
They're yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes. It's her side.
How about them dogs? Is your wife kind of a Georgia fan?
No. It's her dad's sister's husband. He's from Georgia.
Okay. Got it. All right. So, what do you think? What do we got coming up here?
I feel good. I mean, I feel good about. There's 6 guys we talked about this week.
And let me just say this too. At this point last year, how square on the radar was Justice Terry?
Who? Exactly. That's where it was.
I would have asked. Hold on. Like I'd looked at his rival's profile. I'd be like, oh, this 5-star out of like Georgia. Like, what do you mean?
He wasn't. That's the best part.
He's not even on the radar the same way that like a Tyler Atkinson is now. That Texas might end up getting it. So there's a million things that could happen. I believe that they have 2 of Ketchum's super blue chips already on board, right? Richie Wesley, Deja Bell. Is that the only 2?
Well, let's see. 2026. If you look at I think it's just Wesley and Deja Bell are the only consensus super blue chips. Yeah.
So,
and last year you looked at like Justice Terry he decommitted from Georgia, commits to USC, decommits from USC. That was his June. And then he didn't technically get the Texas offer until October. But I mean, Cade Phillips, Michael Terry, Justice Terry, all 3 guys didn't sign, didn't commit until December. It's snow on the ground by then. But this week you got Kendall Gervil, the defensive tackle. Feel really good about him. Kosi Okpala, the linebacker from Maid Creek.
You can feel good about him. Yeah.
And I think those are the main 2 you feel the best about. Don't feel as good about Bryce Perry right now.
Nope.
With the strong side DN situation. Think he's more than likely going to be a Clemson lean with his new teammate Buford, Drake Quinn, who went there a couple of weeks ago. Trenton Henderson's been predicted a lot in the last last 24 hours to LSU. And then Caden Finley, one feels like a toss-up. We've heard a lot both ways between Texas and Notre Dame. And then, of course, John Turntine. So I feel good about Okpala and Gervil. I think we should feel good about John Turntine. Cade Finley, though, that's an interesting one at wide receiver.
Yeah, Caden Finley, obviously a Texas legacy. There's been talk about whether or not he's the son, of course, of Jermichael Finley, just a really good receiver, really really strong hands, great player, good BMI. Is it weird that I feel better about Turntine than I do about Caden Finley?
I think that's right. I think it's right. I think Turntine's dad had some comments, I think, about like his visits. I can't remember where it was at. Something I read on a different team site about like bringing out animals and stuff like this. And I think that took out like on a visit or something like this. And he liked the schools that focused on the player and focused on the visit and the relationships and stuff. And I think that was kind of taken as a like A&M kind of is out of the mix now. It's more towards Texas, Michigan. And I've always thought Michigan is kind of in the conversation with either Krempen or Turntine more so than like an Ojo who took a visit there at one point. So it wouldn't really like completely shock me if Turntine went to Michigan, but I feel better. I feel like if you were to give me a percentage, I would say 75% chance Turntine's like Texas. Whereas I would say like, if you were to make me lean a direction with Finley, it'd be like 65% Notre Dame for Finley, even though we heard that his dad might not be completely in line with that.
100% chance that you need to go to the Man Eye Institute if you need LASIK or anything for your vision needs, but certainly for LASIK, we're so lucky that they're our presenting sponsor here. They're the reason that we do the show every day. The Man Eye Institute, see life better. 1-844-WOW-2020, 1-844-WOW-2020. Check out one of their, excuse me, many locations here in the Austin area. And also make sure to check out our friends at Texas Beef Traders right over there off of Loman's Crossing and 620 in the heart of Lakeway. Get 10% off when you tell them that you heard about them right here on Orange Bloods Live. Also, Cody, a 100% chance that we're going to have you completely covered through the week as these decisions come down with these new players. And hopefully, if you are worried about 2026 recruiting, like so many people around me here in my little bubble are, we can ease some of those tensions for you.